Hello and welcome back. Eddie Rodosevich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios on Campus Corner, and a good reminder for everybody out there on YouTube. Good time to join Soonerscoop.com, and we have a great opportunity for you out there watching. 2 months, $1. All you got to do is promo code OU1 Soonerscoop.com. That is 2 months, $1. A YouTube exclusive for everybody out there watching, and welcome back. It has been a interesting week as we covered the Danny Stutsman news at the beginning of the week. It feels like there's been something every week, whether it be Jeff Levy or Danny Stutsman or Dylan Gabriel. And
every
now,
day. It's every day.
It is. It is.
It's nonstop.
And we went out to practice today. Oklahoma has begun Alamo Bowl practice for the December 28th matchup against Arizona in San Antonio. But, George, we're leaving practice today, and the phone goes off, and maybe the most shocking news that we have had, since maybe even starting doing these YouTube shows, freshman offensive guard / tackle offensive lineman Kaden Green has entered the transfer portal.
Shocking. A guy that, really had a great freshman season and somebody that was a real bright spot for Oklahoma this year. I mean, really solidified himself moving down to left guard. He came in as a tackle, a guy that they thought would maybe be their starting left tackle in the future. It moves to guard. Really, Oklahoma was in a desperate spot this year, having to move him down, and he was fantastic. Arguably, maybe their best offensive lineman at the end of the season when you consider how well he was playing and his age. So to see him go in the portal, knowing that he had a starting spot on this offensive line going into next year, was pretty shocking. And I don't really know why. It sounds like the Oklahoma coaching staff was really blindsided by this. They had no idea that this was happening. The teammates today, we'll hear from them in a little bit. They had no idea he was going in the transfer portal. And who knows? We'll see what happens, where he ends up. He's from Kansas City, went to Lee Summit North High School. You wonder if he would want to be closer to home and go to a place like Missouri, which recruited him very heavily and are very involved in the NIL game. So I don't know, Eddie. It was, we were out there, and somebody had mentioned to me, hey, have you seen Kaden Green at practice? And I looked, and I was like, oh, no, maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's taking a final, something else. And then as we're walking
Tower
out,
literally said, I thought he was taking a final. I think that blindsided, shocked, you can use all of the adjectives just in terms of surprise, in terms of what the Oklahoma program felt. I know that we've done some digging just in the immediacy of everything that happened on Tuesday, and I think flat out every person that you've talked to, part of the Oklahoma football program, is just flat out shocked that this was the decision. And on top of all of that, you have, this is kind of an interesting time period, George, just in terms of you have a bunch of coaches that are out and about on the recruiting trail. And Bill Beatembo was out recruiting today, as was Brent Venables, we believe. DeMarco Murray wasn't at practice because he is out recruiting, like a bunch of these guys. And I don't know. If you're going to enter the transfer portal, I understand that is something that, everybody's going to – it's out there. That's the world of college football nowadays. But at the same time, it just kind of feels slimy. It feels slimy the way that you do this in terms of not letting anybody know, as opposed to, they do end of the year discussions with all of these guys, and particularly somebody like Kaden Green that was going to be a staple of the Oklahoma offensive line moving into 2024. And it seems like, they had those conversations, and there was no indication that he was unhappy.
It's just odd, to be completely frank. I mean, I don't know what exactly went down, what went into the decision, but OU not knowing and being this shocked is pretty telling. And I think that, honestly, I guess that's just the way the transfer portal and NIL and all of that stuff works. And I know there's a lot of people out there saying, well, OU's not doing a good job in NIL. This is an example of that. I don't buy that. We've had those discussions. I think OU's done their due diligence in terms of NIL and offering these guys money. And I just think they thought Kaden wasn't somebody that was going to leave. And I know there's been a lot of criticism of Bill Beatembo out there today, and probably rightfully so, in the sense that you look at where this offensive line is now and how many guys they have coming back next year. It's really thin. They're going to have to go get some guys in the portal because they don't have a ton of experience. I don't even know who's going to start in the bowl game.
I know we were just in the back talking like, okay, who's going to be the starters in
Right.
this? Because now, I mean, the reality of the situation is you have Jackson Arnold taking over, who we'll hear from later on in the program, and he's taking over in a game in which a new offense coordinator and Seth Luttrell, all of that kind of stuff. You're down 3 starters.
Yeah.
You're down. You're
and
simply
you're thankful,
down. You're down 3 starters. Tyler Guyton, Andrew Rame, who both opted out of the bowl game to prepare for the NFL, combine and draft and all that kind of process, as well as now Cayden Green, who, as you noted earlier, started 5 games for Oklahoma, 586 snaps is what you said. I believe that was the 4th most among the starting offensive linemen. It's a big blow.
And you add on top of that, Savion Byrd goes in the
Sure.
portal. I mean, and I know he didn't have a great year, but he had
Sure.
some experience. It's become a really thin group, and you should be thankful that Walter Rouse and McCade Matower are sticking around to play in this bowl game, because if those 2 guys weren't playing in this game, you'd be in real trouble. I mean, even Matower was talking today that he can play center if they really need him to, which they might need him to, because, by the way, Troy Everett did not practice today. You see him right there, 52. He was out there, but he was not participating. So clearly he's injured in some fashion. You see Walter Rouse there. Jake Taylor, I think that we're going to see some of him in the bowl game. And also, heck, he might be a starter now next year. We'll see what position he's playing. But definitely a not great time for the Oklahoma offensive line. And Bill Beatenbow has a lot of work to do in terms of trying to replace some of the production there. And we'll see. Look, maybe Kaden Green, they can somehow recruit him to come back. I don't know. It's just a very odd situation. And to know that literally he told no one, it seems like, on the team, including not only coaches, but his own teammates.
Sure. That was the most surprising part to me. Is you're talking about some of these players, and they were completely shocked by everything. I mean, I literally told Billy Bowman that Kaden Green, his teammate, had entered the portal.
Same with Matower. Matower, I mean, and
It's
Matower's,
crazy.
Obviously one of the big leaders on the team, talked about being very close with Kaden Green. He had no idea that this was going on. So it was crazy. It was crazy to find that out, and then obviously to inform some of those players was pretty shocking.
I would also say, too, and we'll catch up with Josh McQuistion as well. He had a good relationship with Kaden Green through the recruitment process. I'm sure the next time that you hear from him will be on the unofficial 40 that we record on Wednesday. But I think this is where he would interject and say, if NIL was a big deal at Oklahoma, I don't think Kaden Green would have ever got to Norman. You know what I mean? And I can also say that just talking to sources around Norman, it sounds like they were fully ready to, meet whatever demand. But it never got to that point. He left in the middle of the night, basically.
Yeah, and to the same people that are saying the NIL, they're not playing the game. Well, I would point to, I'm not saying this played a role or a huge factor in their decision, but Billy Bowman and Danny Stutsman aren't coming back if they're not getting paid good money. You're also not getting the kid from Purdue, Deion Burks, the wide receiver from Purdue that committed to Oklahoma today, who had offers from everywhere. I mean, this is a guy that every school wanted his services. OU's offering NIL money, so I don't think that is the issue in this circumstance. I honestly don't know what's going on. Maybe he is getting a ton of NIL money. He probably is. I'm sure that's what's going on. But it's not that Oklahoma doesn't have NIL money or is not willing to pay players.
The portal taketh, but the portal, giveth, I guess. Is that the right way to say it? They did get Deion Burks today. That news drops on Tuesday morning. Burks is a wide receiver out of Purdue. Kind of had a slow start to his career at Purdue. 16 receptions, 175 yards in his first 2 seasons in West Lafayette. Then he exploded onto the scene this year. 47 receptions, 629 yards, 7 touchdowns. Had offers from Oklahoma, Texas, Miami, USC, Auburn, Utah, and Washington, to name a few, just to give you an idea of the attention that he was receiving in the transfer portal. And I know that we were talking about him, George, before we started. And this is a guy that you said Pete Thamel had thrown out there that he could end up being a first-round type of talent, draft pick.
Yeah, look, he's a guy that a lot of people thought was the number 1 wide receiver in the transfer portal, somebody that could have the same type of impact that you saw Keon Coleman have at Florida State this year, transferring from Michigan State. He's that type of a weapon, somebody that I think is going to primarily play in the slot. And you talk about replacing somebody like Drake Stoops. You go out and get somebody with this type of production, this kind of speed. He's somebody that can be a downfield threat, do a lot of different things for you. Huge, massive get. And you add to a room, Eddie, that really is already super talented and super
Sure.
experienced. When you talk about the way that Nick Anderson played this year, you get Andrell Anthony back from the ACL injury. Cayden Gibson's back. Jalil Farouk spoke today a little bit about how he's basically saying he thinks he's going to be back next year. We'll see if he keeps that word. But this is a wide receiver group that under Emmett Jones, the talent has just gotten better and better, whether it's through the portal with different guys or some of the guys that they're bringing in this recruiting class, and even last year's recruiting class. I mean, you still have to think about a guy like Jaquez Petaway, who didn't play a ton this year, but they have a lot of high hopes for. So that receiver room and the guys that are going to be around Jackson Arnold, I don't think it can get much better.
Plenty of tools for Jackson Arnold to use at his disposal come 2024. Obviously, we're going to hear from Jackson Arnold here in a little bit, but the big news of the early portion of the week, going all the way back to Friday, as well as the early portion of this week on Monday, was the announcement of Danny Stutsman as well as Billy Bowman. They are set to return in 2024. We were out at practice on Tuesday, got a chance to talk to Danny Stutsman as well as Billy Bowman about their decisions.
And why not, man? It's Oklahoma, man. It's where I've been my whole career. It's a place I love. Obviously it was a very tough decision. I think, the heart wanted to stay here. At the end of the day, you can't turn that down. The pen was to the paper, and it just didn't feel right. I wasn't ready to leave this program. All that we built, going into year 3 with Coach Venables, I wasn't ready to leave just yet.
Can you talk about just the last week of thinking you might leave and then saying you're going to come back? Like, take us through that process.
Yeah, it was a headache, man. It was probably one of the most stressful weeks of my life. I was pretty much like fully committed to, they already cleaned out my locker. Everything was ready to go. And, Coach V called me on Friday. Really just, sat down and talked it through with him again. And like I said before, just didn't feel like I was ready to leave yet. Didn't want to rush that. You never have this time to go back to college. And I really just want to finish out my senior year and everything that comes with that.
How tough was that first conversation you had with him when you told him that you were thinking about leaving?
I mean, when I first talked to him, I told him I was fully decided. If you're talking to Coach V, you can't really have any doubt because he's going to talk to you for hours and try and convince you to stay. So I knew when I called him that first time I had to be 100% committed. And, he gave me his spiel, and I said, look, Coach, this is what's best for my family. And, he had my back 100%. He's like, if that's really what you think, I'm going to support you no matter what. You've done so much for this university. You've given so much to the University of Oklahoma. And, obviously that didn't stick. So we talked again, and, it was on his mind. He wanted to reach back out, and I'm glad he did.
Not done yet. I'm not a finished product. I still got work to do, so that's really all it comes down to is I still got more to do.
Did you do any extra recruiting to get Danny to come back too?
Not on purpose, but that's probably – I know once, I put it out there and, he told me it had him thinking a little bit. So I didn't do it on purpose, but a little bit, tried to.
When Billy made his announcement, did that play anything into your decision at all?
200%. Me and Billy came in here together. We've done everything together, and we really tried to build this defense together. When he said he was coming back, we were talking right after the TCU game. Everything that we've done, we wanted to do it together. And, when I kind of wanted to leave and he said he was staying, it kind of, yes, it did sway my decision for sure.
I think you two, Jalil and Ethan, are the last guys standing from that 21 class.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean just for you four to come back and kind of lead this program into the SEC next year?
Yeah, we've talked about this ever since we got on campus. Our times now, it's crazy with the transfer portal, the turnaround. I think we're probably the only 4 that have probably played. There's a few other guys, Isaiah Coe and JK, that have played in the Alamo Bowl, but, that was only 2 years ago. So a lot of guys haven't experienced, what San Antonio's like. I'm really excited to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I remember walking in here as a freshman. Now, finishing up my junior season, they say when you come to college, the same people that you came in are not going to be there when you go out. So that indeed is true. And yeah, like you said, we're kind of only guys left in the class and, look forward to leading.
With both of those guys coming back, George, I think you're looking at, kind of the 2 pillars of the program. And as you said earlier, I did ask Jalil Farouk if he has a decision to make here coming up. And he basically said that he's coming back.
I think
most likely coming back. Obviously non-committal, but at the same time, it did seem rather positive. And when you talk about, Danny and then Billy and then Jalil and Ethan Downs being kind of the 4 final members of that 2021 recruiting class that had Caleb Williams and, a host of other guys. Latrell McCutcheon, I'm sure, is a big name in the Oklahoma fan base, especially down there in the commenters section. There's a number of those guys that it was supposed to be such a great class. And for those guys, I think it's kind of cool that they're going to finish it out together. It seems like they're going to finish it out together with 3 of the 4 now on the record, Ethan, Danny, and Billy, and particularly on the defensive side of the ball where everybody knows it's so important going into the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting. I think that when you get those type of guys back, not only the players they are on the field, we all know that, those 3 guys specifically on the defensive side have been really productive. I mean, even we know Danny and Billy, the 2 guys that really should be up for national awards. Ethan, too, has had a really productive year this last year. You get those guys back. They're also big leaders, right? Those are vocal guys. I mean, even talking to Billy today, the difference between him at the end of the season versus where he was at the beginning of the season talking with the media, you can tell he's matured a lot, really grown into it. Today it was interesting. We mentioned it earlier. A lot of the coaches were gone. Brandon Hall was not there today. So the individual drills that we were out there for practice, it was all player led. And Billy Bowman was leading the way for the safeties today. So kind of seeing him point guys in the right direction, move guys around, tell them what they're doing, I think is really cool to see. And you've seen that from guys like Danny before too. But I just think that to have those type of guys back and be leaders for this group says a lot. And it's guys, I said this to you earlier, Eddie. When was the last time OU had 2 big name guys like a Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman who had the opportunity to leave, but they decided to stay?
Yeah.
It's been some time now that I can remember somebody deciding, hey, I want to come back for my extra year or my last year at Oklahoma. And so to have that, I think you've said it too. Those were the 2 biggest recruitments in the offseason for Oklahoma, and they got both of them to come back. It's huge for OU.
We'll see what happens with names like DJ Terry or a Jacob Lacey or a Woody Washington even, who has eligibility left that they could return in 2024 and obviously be even bigger presences or foundation builders in terms of what Oklahoma's building to go to the SEC. Just in terms of, this was the first time that we had talked to Danny since everything kind of came out on Monday. He went over kind of the timeline, talking about going in and talking with Brent Venables and telling him that he was going to go, and then obviously having the phone call with him on Friday that kind of put him right back in the middle, and then they finally told him come Saturday that was the decision that he was going to actually make. He was going to come back. Was there anything surprising to you that that stuck out to you that maybe you weren't, I guess, going in prepared to hear?
No, because we reported it correctly the first time, Eddie.
Interesting.
So we kind of knew what was going on. But no, I think it was cool to hear it from Danny's perspective, and especially that conversation. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the conversation with Brent. I'm sure that Danny said that Brent was very supportive. I'm sure Brent was also trying to convince him from the start to try and come back. And it sounds like that phone call on Friday really went in the favor of Brent and keeping Danny and kind of rethinking it. And it also sounds like,
how about Billy popping when
exactly. I think Billy kind of putting the pressure on Danny a little bit. I also think I don't want to take all of us take some credit, but I do think us putting it out there and him kind of seeing the reaction to people when we put out that he was, considering leaving. I think that was something that, probably hit home to him as well. But I think that conversation with Brent Friday, combined with Billy, it sounds like he maybe did a little bit of recruiting himself to Danny.
Sure.
I'm sure Jaron Kanik and those guys as well, who he's close with, did their own recruiting as well. But it sounds like, it was one of those decisions that Danny, I think, probably just made an impulsive decision. And it was pretty quick. I mean, he made it on Wednesday, turn around by Friday. It sounds like he was already considering coming back.
Hearing Danny talk about it, and you can see the entire full interview on Soonerscoop.com's editorial page. Went about 10 minutes with us on Tuesday afternoon. Hearing him talk about coming and seeing his locker had been cleaned out and everything was like basically thrown into a trash bag in the middle of the floor. I think that was a little bit of a real moment. Now, he had already decided that he was coming back by the time he got back into the locker room, as well as the video and making the video, as we talked about on the Instant Reaction show
Sweet
on Monday. With the Corvette and the Boz coming back and using the fur coat from Coach Switzer, that was kind of fun to hear him talk about.
It was awesome, and it's too bad that was apparently not going to see the light of day because they were using it for the Butkus Award, thinking that he was going to be a semifinalist and to push for him to be a finalist, which I would be totally shocked if he doesn't make it next year, barring an injury or something crazy happening. I think that he kind of got robbed this year of not being at least a semifinalist. But yeah, to hear the backstory of that stuff, I thought was pretty funny. He was like, yeah, no, we didn't shoot that just over the weekend. That's something that they've had kind of in their back pocket and kind of repurposed it. And also his relationship with the Boz. It sounds like him and the Boz have become pretty close, which is amazing because
really
considering
cool.
their personalities, it's like, you couldn't have a better fit there.
And I think he's obviously really tight with Teddy Lehman as well.
Yeah.
So, two of the best linebackers that have ever played the game here at the University of Oklahoma. You think any chance Danny were to wear 44 next year?
Boy,
and
that's a lot of pressure.
It would be semblance of Buki. It would not be because of Brian Bosworth. No, I'm kidding. It'd be because of the Boss. That would be
awesome. It would be
awesome if
but
he did it.
That's putting a big target. It's
Sure.
like wearing 88 at for the Dallas Cowboys at receiver.
Sure.
And if anyone's gonna do it, it's probably Danny.
No, it would be.
Maybe you should mention that to him.
I might have to. But it will be, somewhat kind of interesting moving forward. It is good news for Oklahoma to get both of those guys back. And I think that, as you said, there is a little bit of a spirit that is there that Oklahoma will kind of, already have, especially on the defensive side of the ball moving in to 2024. First things first, though, Oklahoma does have a bowl game coming up on December 28th, as we discussed, against Arizona, and it will be the first start for Jackson Arnold on Tuesday. After practice, we talked to Jackson as well as a couple other offensive members talking about, quarterback one in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah, super excited. It's obviously a great opportunity for me, being a freshman, just kind of getting real experience before you enter the SEC next year, so I'm super pumped up for this opportunity.
What's your relationship been like with Seth?
It's been good. I've been close with Coach Luttrell since he got here. Constant communication since he's got here, and he's helped me develop as a player, even not in the OC role. And, it's been great to get to know him, and I'm super happy he's our OC now.
Did Dylan have any message for you when he left?
Yeah, he just told me to just, have fun and ball out. And I hope we see him down the line next year.
I mean, his elite ball placement, elite instincts. I mean, you see at the BYU game when he made that adjustment to Jaleel for that, that pass. That was a critical. That literally sealed the game off. He's a competitor, man. His instincts are second to none, and he's a great player. I mean, we already know what he does. We've seen the film. He's a great leader. He's going to step into that role starting, with this bowl game, which is a great opportunity for him. There's no one better I'd like to lead this team.
I've watched Jackson since he's been there. I watched him grow up. So him stepping up in his role, I'm very excited to see him play this weekend. In the bowl game. I can't wait till he showcases his talent. He's a great dude, great leader, and he can sling it.
Not too much. I mean, I think they both offer a similar type of game. Both Dylan and Jackson able to attack the defense. On the ground, in the air, whatever it may be. So I think he's filling a role pretty well for what DG left, and excited for DG, excited for his opportunities. But I think I'm excited for what Jackson's got as well. So he's stepping up and assuming that role really well.
Having the coaches' trust is a huge thing for me, and knowing that the coaches are trusting me to go out and perform my best, and they're not changing the game plan whatsoever. We're running the same stuff, and we would have ran the same stuff if Dylan was here too. So just that trust they have in me is really special to me.
What is the biggest thing you learned from Dylan, or biggest things?
I want to say Dylan kind of taught me how to be a really good college quarterback to perform at the highest level. I mean, he had a stellar year this past year, and the way he handled himself, it was super awesome to see. Not only him as a player, but him as a person handle everything. It just kind of taught me, to be calm, collected, level-headed, and then, off the field, he helped me out with learning the offense, whether that was, installing plays or, keying defenses and defensive recognition. He helped me out with all of that.
It was a little bit surreal being out at practice on Tuesday, just in terms of, obviously the Jackson Arnold stuff. We had no idea about the Kaden Green stuff until we were walking off of the practice field. But because of it is finals week in Norman, because a bunch of the coaches are out doing their own thing, it seemed like it was just like almost half the squad. And then you have all of the opt-outs, and then you have all of the, guys that will not be participating in the bowl game, not out there, obviously. Anything stick out to you? There's one that I have in mind, and it is the presence of Tawi Walker, who announced that he was entering the transfer portal, has not done so yet, and now practicing with Oklahoma in preparation for the December 28th bowl game.
Gonna be interesting to see what ends up happening there, because he's kind of sent out some weird tweets, I would say.
Cryptic?
Yeah, cryptic tweets. I know he had he put out a video, I think a week ago, and DeMarco Murray replied to it with some emojis. Then he replied with some emojis. And then today he tweets out, the bowling ball with some pins, which makes you think maybe is he talking about playing in the bowl game?
Sure.
I know Gavin Sawchuk kind of spoke about him today and said how cool it is that he's sticking around to finish what he started at Oklahoma in terms of, playing or practicing for the bowl game. We'll see if he actually plays or if he sticks around after the bowl game.
I mean, look at it this way. It's somewhat of a dress rehearsal or an audition. If you are going to enter the portal, you might as well go play in the bowl game and do as best as you can to gain interest from somebody out there watching, possibly.
I agree with that. The more interesting thing is that Oklahoma is also okay with that, because I think that there's somewhat, to a degree, the coaching staff saying, hey, if you're in the portal, you're not on the team, right? Or you're either in or you're out. And I think that them allowing him to practice as well as maybe play and maybe even stick around, maybe he's rethinking his decision. We'll see. I mean, once you get in the portal, doesn't always mean you're going to leave. We've seen that time and again, and it's sort of like the Danny thing. Just because you say that you might leave to the NFL doesn't mean you're going to. You can change your mind. That does happen. So I thought that was really interesting to see Tawee out there. Other than that, Troy Everett kind of being banged up. I thought that, mostly everybody else was out there that I could tell. DJ Terry, you see him right there. He was out there. He's got a big decision coming up. Jacob Lacey was out there as well. I saw Trace Ford was out there. Rondell Bothroyd, guys that, we think might be headed to the NFL, but they're going through practice. Seems like they're going to play in the bowl game. PJ Atabare going through the bags here too. So it was just kind of a light practice. A lot of coaches were gone, like I said. Brandon Hall, DeMarco Murray, Bill Beatembo. I don't know if I saw Emmett Jones out there. Seth Luttrell, seeing Seth Luttrell out there, with no Jeff Lebby. Yeah, working with the quarterbacks. No Jeff Lebby out there, obviously. So all that stuff was kind of interesting to see what they're doing. And again, Seth Luttrell, it's going to be interesting to hear from him. It sounded like Jackson and Jalil both said that the offense maybe isn't changing a whole lot. Maybe that's just for the bowl game. Keep it simple moving forward. You don't want to change too much and put too much on these guys' plates.
Well, and you don't know how much you can handle with an offensive line that's going to be restructured going into the bowl game with the Kaden Green news on Tuesday. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that, these next couple of weeks, I don't know how much we're going to actually be able to talk to him here in between now and the time that we get down to San Antonio to start bowl coverage. But, they are out at practice and everything's going well. We do have
Brent wasn't out
early
there either,
National Signing Day coming up next week. Yeah, I mean, they're out doing recruiting right now. This is one of those, big moments that you go in, you do all your in-homes and all that kind of stuff. And, obviously, going out and getting guys in the portal as well. Oklahoma's going to be active there, where they're also active in the running back room. The kid from South Carolina and the kid from, I keep wanting to say Middle Tennessee State.
UT Martin.
But I know it's not Middle Tennessee State. And for some reason, I just have it in my brain. UT Martin. That's
Martin.
Right. So it's going to be interesting. And once again, it is a good time to join Soonerscoop.com. For 2 months, just $1. It's pretty simple. Promo code OU1 for the YouTube viewer out there. $1, 2 months for Soonerscoop.com. That is promo code OU1. Special offer for the YouTube viewer out there. And George, it's a really good time. As we said, with all the football stuff that's happening, Oklahoma's number 11 in the AP poll in the basketball world today, or that came out on Monday. We're going to join Bob Prisbillo on Wednesday afternoon to talk about the little bit of a recap from what was in Tulsa over the weekend with a 79-70 victory over Arkansas. A very impressive performance for Porter Moser's group as they improved to 9-0 on the season. Coming up with a game on Saturday against Green Bay. It's at 8 o'clock, which is kind of weird, but it's graduation weekend in Norman. I believe the Lloyd Noble Center will be used for those facilities. It'd be nice if you had a different gym. You could just play the game at 1 o'clock and we'd be done by the nighttime. But that's neither here nor there. That's another vote that we'll have. As you can see, I voted today. Said yes. Need a new arena up in Oklahoma City.
I didn't vote. I'm
not a big Thunder fan.
Registered voter in Tulsa, so I need to get that switched.
No,
but I would have voted yes.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how all this comes together. December is a very, very, very busy month for us here at Soonerscoop.com with a bunch of stuff planned for next Wednesday, the early National Signing Day. Oklahoma signing one of the better classes in the country. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we kind of delve into that. But we will be back on Friday, George and I will, we're supposed to talk to Brent Venables, and it's going to be kind of interesting to get his thoughts on the Cayden Green stuff.
So much stuff to ask him.
As well as, the coordinator stuff, because we really haven't necessarily talked to Brent since he promoted Joe John and promoted Seth Luttrell to offensive coordinator. He talked about it a little bit in the Alamo Bowl press conference last week, but it would be good to kind of get some FaceTime with him and get his insight into kind of everything on the Oklahoma football realm with the, kind of the gut punch today with the Kaden Green news. And that is, it's still, I think, a little bit shocking because of all the positives that, kind of led into this year. And then on top of everything that we had been hearing, just even over the last week with Kaden Green basically kind of signed up to come back in 2024. And not necessarily, I don't want to put it that way, but there was no signs that he was looking to go and to leave in, basically the dead of the night, if you will. That's just a phrase. He didn't really leave at night, but it's just shocking.
And there's always a surprising portal entry, I think, but this one was extra shocking.
It's different, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, because you always have one where you're like, wow, that guy went in the portal, but this one was like, again, I was shocked when I saw that on my phone today.
You almost kind of just keep checking and going, now wait a
real?
second. Yeah, is that real? And did they make a mistake? But no, Kaden Green is headed elsewhere. And it's so early in the process with this just happening a few hours ago, George. I almost kind of wonder, the general thought when somebody enters the transfer portal is, well, they could still come back. Because of the way this went down, how do you weigh? Do you try to re-recruit him?
Yeah.
Versus the guy kind of left you at the altar in a way.
I think he's good enough that you re-recruit him.
Sure.
And especially the spot you're in already on the offensive line, I think if you can get him back, you 1,000% do it. And also, I'll say, as of whatever time it is, 5:30 on Tuesday, I don't believe he's officially in the portal. Obviously, he intends to be in it, but I don't think he's officially in, which sometimes that takes, a day or two to actually get your name in there.
Interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And real quick, we're about to get out of here. I did want to say it was awesome to see Ben Taywater out at practice today.
Yeah.
A student assistant for Oklahoma, a former player on the team for a little bit, I believe, when he arrived in Norman. He was diagnosed with
Bishop
cancer.
McGinnis is from Bishop McGinnis.
Yeah, an Oklahoma City kid. He was diagnosed with cancer during the middle of the season, I believe, or starting chemo during the middle of the season. It was great to see him back out there.
Yeah, and I think he just maybe finished up doing chemo, which has allowed him to get back out to practice. I know that there's a lot of guys on the team that are very close with him, so to see him back out there, I think was a good spiritual lift for everybody.
Very good. All right, for George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We will be back here with Bob Przybylo on Wednesday talking OU hoops. We'll see you then.